Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you? It's pretty late there for you, right?
Yeah, it's almost 11:30 p.m.
Okay, well, yeah, not
Yeah.
not crazy late, like, at least. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean it's all right. I mean, I'm like an owl, you know. So yeah, thank you so much for joining my show. It's really been my honor for this. So thank you so much for
of
doing
course,
the
of
show.
course.
Yeah.
And how do
So
you pronounce your name?
Junayed.
Junayed. Okay, that's what I thought, but I always like to
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Trust me, I
Yeah.
get it all the time on my last name, even though it's like phonetically spelled.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "I'm gonna need you to spell that for me," or they see it and they're like, uh, like adding letters. You know how it is, man.
Yeah. So first of all, I really want to know about your journey. When did you start your journey in film?
So as far as like the stunt driving, I it was fairly early, like mid '90s time, like
Yeah.
with Ronin, the Italian Job, things like that. And then I got into the first couple of Fast and the Furious movies, and then it just kind of went from there. Um, and I've done like periodically, I jump in and do another, like driving type game, things, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's mostly things at this point that I just want to work on.
Yeah.
Like nostalgia pushes, like the Transformer stuff, and like GI Joe. Um,
Yeah.
I'm like all GI Joe'd up.
Oh.
That's my jam. If you like, so I like those kind of projects I get involved in specifically just because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna jump into this franchise because I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because now I've shifted more to the back end of the industry more than
Yeah.
more than the other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So like also you were in the stunt department, right?
right, stunt driving is what I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I really want to know about the department, that how it actually works.
Okay. So I mean, as far as like start like front to back, it's my end of it is just get in the car and do things that most people don't. But there's a lot that goes into it. Like for instance, on the Fast and the Furious movies, I focus like I tend to drive more like American muscle cars. Like even in my
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
life, I'm like a Mustang guy. Um, so there were I mean, thousands of cars there, right? And there was like so many of these like European, sports cars and all that. And
Yeah, yeah.
but we don't really choose necessarily. Like they tell us what to drive. Usually, whatever you're comfortable with, that's what they put you in.
Yeah.
Um, but like for instance, on that, Mike is the guy's name, but he was the car guy, right? So
Yeah.
that job, like it's kind of like a stunt coordinator, but those guys are more in charge of the physical stunts. Um, with the thing, it's more about the cars, so they make sure that it's operational because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
stripped down. Obviously, like you're not, they're not going to like mostly destroy like a fully functional vehicle. So they're like,
Yeah.
they're reinforced but stripped down as far as the internal components, things like that. So they got to make sure they're operational. And he just like on that one, he just chooses the car straight out. Like so until we show up on set like the first day, like we have no idea what's going to be there. And then he's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're on this one and you're in this, and I mean, obviously they tend to try to get you to look a little bit like for wide shots, like the person who's supposed to be driving, but that's way less important. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because if I'm doing my job right behind the wheel, you'll never see me.
Yeah.
Like, and I honestly, a lot of people will be like, oh, I drove, I was a stunt person for this guy. I don't really do that because I like to kind of leave that like mystery, right?
Yeah.
Where you're watching a movie and you might have that question and go like, I wonder if so and so does their own driving or stunt, because that's my job. I'm not supposed to
Yeah,
be,
yeah, yeah.
front and
Exactly.
center. Like I'm just supposed to make the star look good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So like then the whole, I mean, your career, the whole career shift, it has happened like from stunt to the casting. So
Right.
how it has happened?
Okay. So it's from the, I mean, it's not that odd, but I know what you're saying. Like it's not the common path. So
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
The first thing I ever really did, other than like the initial stunt driving, right? When you're on set, you're always like you're talking to the other stunt people and
Yeah,
actors
yeah,
um and everybody. Like I mean, a lot of actors will say, "Oh no, I just want to act." Most of them want to direct and write, and you know what I mean. Like they want to make their own thing, that put themselves in. So that always comes up, right? Where people are like,
yeah, yeah,
"Oh, I'd really like to be behind the camera," and you know this and that. So from those conversations, you know, I ended up helping with a couple of friends, like
yeah,
producing sort of like independent, like mostly
yeah, yeah,
horror type films. Um, and then part of when when you're producing, like when you're involved in an indie film, like you're in behind the camera, you're doing like all of it. You know what I mean? Like everybody's
yeah, yeah,
doing
yeah.
everything. I mean, I'm sure you know. I saw you have the film studio.
Yeah, yeah. I also,
So
make
right, so
films.
even
Yeah,
if you're yeah, exactly. So you end up doing that. So I ended up helping with casting, and then I had started like my own sort of online TV network, Nerdorama
yeah,
Network, right? And through that, I had a decent amount of reach. So I became the person who they would go to and go, "Hey, can you put out casting calls?
yeah,
We want to get people in this film." So I started doing that, which then transitioned, from having that producer and casting responsibility to
yeah,
I was working with a lot of like people's agents and managers and other casting people.
yeah,
And so it was a natural transition where they were like, "Hey, you want to do it here?" And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. So yeah, that was where that transition was. And because that became more the main thing that I was doing, like I said, it allowed me to just decide like, oh, I'll get behind the wheel again and,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
play around in this movie. So
yeah. So, like, you have been associated with so many, big films like Spider-Man: No Way Home, like Marvel blockbusters and Star Wars. So, how was your experience working with the blockbusters like that?
honestly, so it's very different than the indie scene, right? Where like on independent movies, it may be me and like the director sitting in a room
Yeah, yeah,
talking to actors and very casual. Um,
yeah,
because there's not so much a specific look or anything that you're. I mean, sometimes in an independent film, like you have an idea,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if somebody comes in and they have like the right feel, they're great, perfect. Sign,
yeah,
sign on. Or sometimes it's even just like if they're willing, right? Like because
yeah, yeah,
sometimes there's not much pay, if any. So you're like, oh, you're willing to do it just to be for a credit? Yeah,
yeah,
okay, great. You're perfect for the role. That's all we needed. But then,
yeah,
on these like bigger budget things, and I always tell people when they ask, because I get constant like emails and questions, and they're like, I want to play this main character. And
yeah,
I'm like, okay, so first of all, it's not just me. Like, I'm not going to be the only person going, oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, let me get you in there, because it's on when they're talking $1 billion productions, like that's what they're
yeah,
going to make. Like, it's not. There's no part of it is one person, going to be the end all be all
yeah,
decision maker. So it's it comes through like the office basically, and several people are like, I may look at your resume, or somebody else in the department might, and then we
yeah,
kind of just confer. And of course, if you are chosen to at least audition, then you come in. But the major roles, like your Spider-Man, Thor,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
their short list of like actors they want. Like
yeah,
they
yeah,
will
yeah,
hand it to us and go, try to get these, like, look through this list, who do you think, and reach out to their representation, see who
yeah,
we can possibly get, because they want that name to draw, right? Like they want your
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
any one of the Chris's, or like that kind of thing, like somebody they've seen in something else that they go, oh, that's the guy, that's our Peter Parker.
yeah,
um so that part of it is very, it's a little restrictive, because you can't find like some hot new, like new undiscovered talent for that. Sometimes it happens, but
yeah,
no, normally it's somebody who's either big altogether or hot right now.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they just came off of something that was great, or they got an award for, and they go, try to get that guy.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right. And like I said, it usually comes down to a short list of like no
yeah,
more than 10 people. Usually it's usually about 5-6 people, and they're like, who can we do? But I always tell people too, I'm like, if you want to get into the MCU or whatever, take
yeah,
other roles. Like, not, it wasn't something that I cast on, but literally like James Gunn's Suicide Squad, right? Like there were plenty of small roles, like the
Yeah.
people in like Amanda Waller's crew, right? But then they did the spinoff with Peacemaker, and all of
Yeah.
them became main characters. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
they went from like this tiny little part to actually having like their own TV show. I mean, it
Yeah. Yeah.
happens, it's
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I want the big role, and I'm like, so so get in.
Yeah.
Like Guy in Elevator probably not going to be in the spinoff, but if you can get like an actual like sort of
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
I've got friends who had like 2 lines in a TV show who have been working the convention circuit ever since. I mean, there's there's other ways to make money and get in.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I have like now I have two certain questions. Like the first one is, what are the things that you notice in actors in terms of selecting actors?
Okay, like so right. So when we do this straight up like they're coming in. So really
Yeah.
it's about it's hard to kind of put into words like the feeling with them,
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
I don't personally, you don't have to have like lines memorized. And to be honest, it doesn't even help.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't care if you're holding the script and reading. Like that's it's hearing how you do it. It's seeing your body language, the confidence, you know,
Yeah.
um, because all of that's going to show through when you're in the role. Honestly, the funniest thing to me is the big roles are usually actors like and not the big right, like because we already talked about that, but like that mid-range, like more on film,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
face and lines. Those are usually like those guys are usually pretty like on top of like they've done a lot of auditions, they've already gotten there.
Yeah.
The funniest ones to me are the background actors, like and the worst of them are always like restaurant scenes or people standing in line. Okay, because like once they hit the set for whatever reason, it's like people forget how to stand in line. Like it's like they've never been in a line before, right? Or like in the restaurant because they're not audibly speaking because I mean the boom picks
Yeah.
up everything, right? So they have to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pretend. Like you
Pretend. Yeah.
have people with like their silver, like they don't know how to use silverware anymore, or they're like all exaggerated laughing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you never spoken to another person? Like, are you not aware of
Exactly.
how to eat? Like, is this your first time ever like in a restaurant? Like, what is going on with you?
Yeah.
That's the funniest stuff to me is watching these people that are like just in the background, like having no idea how to be normal people anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it always like in terms of casting all the background actors? Like, is it always your call or also the director's call also?
So it usually will come down to in the room is typically like you'll have maybe a producer,
Yeah.
whoever's like a couple people who are going to be doing casting, and then the director is usually there. They have input, but normally like they're not super worried about like unless there's so directors in my experience aren't so much the ones who say, okay, I want this person, but they kind of are there for like veto power, right?
Yeah.
So if there's something about the person that's just they don't like, or they didn't, the attitude or feel is wrong, they'll be like, yeah, I don't want that one. That's
Yeah.
really what they're there to do is kind of be like, no, like not so much. Yeah, they're great. It does happen, like if they really like somebody or whatever, they'll be like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't care. Like that's my person, because they're the one who at the end of the day has to work with them day in day out. You know what I mean? So we really do respect that. Like if a director, unless the producer themselves, like the money producer goes, yeah, I don't care. No, like if the director wants or doesn't want somebody, we tend to go, yeah, that's fine because you have to work with them. Once they're
Yeah.
selected, I'm done with them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I don't have to continue to work with them. They don't come to me with problems, that kind of thing. It's all with the director. So I'm like, yeah, you want that? That's yours.
Yeah. So like how much pressure you like you have gone through when you were doing Spider-Man No Way Home, because there's Kevin Feige, probably the biggest
Right.
producer. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's as far as casting goes, it's not as big of a deal. I mean, for the people who are going to show up again and again, like the other
Yeah. Yeah.
students, for instance, in the Spider-Man movies, there has to be continuity of people there. So there's a little pressure to make sure that whoever you get for these roles
Yeah,
can stick through them, especially because, like other than like his, two best friends, right? You got MJ and Ned. Other than
yeah,
them, they're not huge roles, but they
yeah.
show up repeatedly, right?
Repeatedly. Yeah,
Even
yeah,
even Flash Thompson, right, who is in the
yeah,
comics is a bigger role. Like he's a bigger character in the comics than he
yeah,
was.
yeah,
That's not a huge role, right? Like definitely for a lot of actors, they won't see that as like a career launching role. So you have
yeah,
to find somebody who can commit to like multiple movies potentially for a at best mid-level role, which
yeah,
is not always easy, right? Because like if they get an offer for something else, they might take it,
yeah,
but then you got Kevin up your like on your back going like, okay, why do we have a different, why do we have a different Flash Thompson?
yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
is ridiculous. We have a 10-year plan, man, because and that's the problem with like everything's a shared universe now, and it's all like everybody wants their big overarching universe. But when you're planning 10 years out, like you don't know, like for instance, right now, Jeremy Renner, right? He had that
yeah,
snowplow
yeah,
accident. Like, okay, well, luckily, they sort of were already passing the torch, so to speak, in the MCU to like the next,
yeah, 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 yeah,
like with the Hawkeye show, they were introduced Kate Bishop, and so
yeah,
that's sort of like here's the new Hawkeye,
yeah, exactly.
which makes
Yeah,
it easier if God forbid whatever he were to die, but also like with the surgeries, he may not be able to come do what he was doing. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have that situation maybe come up where somebody gets into an accident or dies or whatever, like unexpectedly.
yeah,
When you're planning 10, 15 years out, like that's a major pivot because
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
perfect example, like Chadwick Boseman, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, that was don't get me wrong, like, yeah, his family or like got hit worse, but like, of course, when you're carrying a franchise and you
yeah,
die, and there's like 15 years of plans for your
exactly.
character,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
everything is rewrites, and it has to be
right.
fast, right? Because
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
only push it so much. Like when it's supposed to fall here in the line, you might be
yeah,
able to kind of like adjust it to where it falls after a couple other movies, but
yeah,
that gives you like a year to completely rewrite,
yeah,
recast, like figure out how to completely change the plan that
yeah,
doesn't also mess up everything else. And then in the meantime, say the two movies that you just brought ahead of it, well, they were
yeah,
written to react to things that happened in that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
now all that has to change. So, the one that you're filming now to replace that still has to have rewrites and things because like they were, supposed to interact with Black Panther, right?
yeah,
No Black Panther right now. And even if you replace him, it's now like those events haven't happened anymore, like
exactly.
in that order. So
Yeah,
they can't react to something that hasn't yet happened.
yeah,
So yeah, it gets super complicated when you're dealing with those like major universes. Honestly,
yeah,
man, like DC had it right, but now they're going into everything is connected because like
yeah,
before with the Warner Brothers DC stuff, it could have a continuity to another show or movie. It might
yeah,
not, and it didn't matter,
right.
right? Like
Yeah,
Shazam kind of stood on its own, and then they went, let's tie it together. Like Suicide Squad, all that they had no connection, and it makes it way easier for everybody.
yeah,
But audiences started at one point going, hey, we're watching
yeah,
Spider-Man. Why is Fantastic Four not there? Why does he
totally.
never
Yeah,
see the Avengers? And that's
exactly.
always been a thing. People ask that about comics too. Like,
Yeah,
why is he fighting? Like, why is Spider-Man getting beat around in New York when the
yeah,
Fantastic
yeah,
or the Avengers are right there? Like, they can't step in and help him out. So but then obviously the producers of when Disney took it went, why aren't they there? So let's
yeah,
do that. Let's make them all there. And then now everybody wants to make but the thing is because of that,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you slap Marvel on a movie, like it's gonna make 600 million without even being a decent movie. Like people will just go. And
yeah.
if it gets positive word of mouth, you're going over a billion
Billions.
guaranteed.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
it's ridiculous the amount of money that's coming around for movies these days.
Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, as you have said, like, has it ever happened that the whole process gone wrong? Like, I have noticed that from the beginning, if you see from Iron Man, the roadie has changed.
Right.
Also, yeah. Also, the character I've seen recently, the Cassie Lang, the character of Cassie Lang,
Yeah,
replaced by Catherine Newton.
right.
So so
Sorry.
yeah,
So sometimes, like in the Cassie part, right? Um, it's a like an age up thing where where there was
yeah,
a time jump
time
that's
jump.
longer than the actress that that would like naturally would look that way, and it's so you kind of have to play it a little looser with that. Um,
Yeah,
Sometimes, like for instance, when Solo like changed directors, changed writing, all that.
yeah,
Um, and I'm not dropping any drama that hadn't already come out, but literally it was because they started shooting, and it was originally written as more of like almost like a buddy comedy with the Han and Lando parts,
yeah,
but they when they started shooting went, okay, so he did great in the audition, but this guy can't carry a movie, like, and he doesn't have the comedic timing to make that kind of movie. So then
yeah,
Ron Howard comes in, and they rewrite a bit, and they went, okay, let's kind of drop some of this jokes, and we'll make it kind of, because honestly at that point I would have recast and just reshot, because I mean at that they did more work trying to
yeah,
avoid the work of reshooting, by rewriting and cutting it differently, like all that took way more effort than if they had just been like, okay, we don't like this actor as much as we thought. He's not going to
yeah,
carry a movie, and we can make a better movie.
yeah,
So sometimes it's that, and then sometimes it's just like people don't like the stars of the movies just don't jive well. So
yeah,
like, or there's like a schedule conflict. Every now and then it's like something in their personal life will come up. For instance, that was the issue with like Zack Snyder, right? Like he had a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
major, like,
Major, yeah,
devastating personal issue, right?
issue. Yeah,
And so, he had to leave the thing. And then, that obviously caused like all kinds of nonsense with like, release the Snyder cut. And, like,
yeah,
I feel really bad for like James Gunn
yeah,
like walking in,
totally. Yeah,
because honestly, I feel like the releasing of the Snyder Cut to HBO Max was just marketing to get people to sign up for HBO Max. Like they
yeah,
didn't release it in theaters. They did, they put it there so that people would specifically go there to watch it.
yeah,
So, but what that told like that sort of fan base on the internet was, if you're loud enough, you'll get your way. So
yeah,
now James Gunn took over, and I actually have a friend who like runs comic book shop and all that, and he's like
yeah,
very upset about like Henry Cavill getting like released, and I'm
yeah,
like, but they had to. They like, in order for James Gunn to be able to pull it together, right, and have everything like
yeah,
cohesive, you can't hold on to any of the stuff. And he's like, well, he could have done it Zack Snyder's plan, and I'm like, well, yeah, but if they wanted that, they would have just put Zack
yeah,
Snyder. Like,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
not gonna like, I'm not gonna hire you and go do it exactly like this other guy. I'll just hire
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
So I'm like, once they decided to go with anybody but him, that whole plan was out the window. Like,
yeah,
sorry. Um, but yeah, no, to sort of like circle back around, when that happens, for instance, the roadie thing, right? It can get a little like stressful, and because you have to do it fast, right? Like there's another movie already coming, and you have to find like somebody
yeah,
who's,
yeah,
I guess, I don't want to say better, but kind of like at least good enough that people don't get upset, right? Like
totally.
especially when it's like person of color
Yeah,
actor, because
yeah,
then you're trying to avoid that, like, oh, so what are you saying, like all black people look the same? Like, no, not at all. However, we did have to recast, like we're not just saying like, oh, you have an issue and you want, because that one was really, I believe it just came down to money, right? Where it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like, oh, they're making this, and I think, I should. And it's like, yeah, but the movie's Iron Man and he's Iron Man, right? So like,
yeah, yeah,
like, sorry, man. Like, I get that you want to also get like that, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever, but the budget's the budget, like,
yeah,
and then, when they hard line it and try to like call the bluff, like sometimes, they go, all right, well, hey, it was nice working with you, have a great time. And then, you bring somebody in.
yeah,
Honestly, I think it was an improvement. I really do. In that
yeah,
particular case, I think that, that Don Cheadle did way more with the role than,
Yeah, yeah,
so it was
yeah,
nice,
totally.
but yeah, it does get really complicated in that, especially like when you have, like you said, Kevin Feige, who's very
Yeah,
continuity minded, and then it's unavoidable,
yeah,
then he's like, okay, we got to find the right person, and we got to, and it's like, and
yeah,
especially because he starts to kind of sweat it a little bit and be like, okay, so we can't switch this again. So
yeah,
now
yeah,
that we've changed this guy, like that's it. Like
yeah,
make sure it's somebody who's going to be in it for the long haul, because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's nothing we can do at this point.
yeah, totally.
Because
And I,
you don't want to roll that every movie is a different
yeah,
guy, unless that becomes like you have to write it in as a running joke. But
exactly. I mean, I also believe that James Gunn is a better choice because he understands the Kevin Feige mentality. He
yeah,
understands the how he has done and how he's doing. So yeah, I mean,
I've
Kevin.
never been disappointed by James Gunn. I'll be honest. Like anything that he's touched,
Yeah,
I've
me
loved.
too. Me too. Yeah,
The
yeah,
only the only concern that I've seen that seems kind of legitimate, that even I was like, well, is that he has a very specific tone.
yeah,
He's very good with the comedic stuff and this and that.
yeah,
I mean, he came from like Trauma, and he did like Brightburn,
yeah,
which are
yeah.
not comedic in nature. So he
Okay.
can do it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But he also, the only, like I said, legit, he has a tendency, like for instance in Peacemaker, every time he mentioned any of the major people, it was
yeah,
always like he doesn't exactly like respect the integrity of the character, people say, like where
yeah.
Superman's supposed to be like, this like Boy Scouty, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like he doesn't really always write people that
Yeah,
way. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean? Like they're breaking a lot of that down too in comics right now, So there is sort of a precedent for it, but that's the people who are going to the movies are not necessarily the comic fans, and they've
yeah,
got a specific vision they want, especially Superman, right?
yeah, yeah,
Batman they've played with a few times. They always kind of come back to like at least
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a broody kind of emo character, and as long as you kind of hit the dark note,
yeah,
people are okay with it. Like you can play with all the Bruce Wayne, you can do, like some of the nuance, but when you have a character like Superman, there's an
yeah,
expectation there. Like, and that's one of the big reasons that Zack Snyder caught as much crap from audiences as he did, was
yeah.
because he went a different way and it was a little darker, and
That way. Yeah,
because he wanted to do the whole like Jesus allegory stuff. It was like very,
yeah,
like a very different tone than
yeah,
bright
yeah.
blue and red and, Lois and Clarky, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it was, yeah, like it had a very different feel. And some people after the fact said they liked it, but at the time, that's the other thing that cracks me up about everybody. Like Zack Snyder's vision was, when it came out, like everybody was like, I hate this. And then
Yeah,
he
yeah,
left, and all of a sudden they're like, that was the best thing ever. It's like, it's like when, when a like spouse, like somebody dies and they're like, we're constantly fighting, right?
yeah, yeah,
Once
yeah,
the person dies, they're like, oh, he was a saint, and you're like, where was this when, when they were,
yeah, yeah,
same thing. Like Zack Snyder leaves, and all of a sudden he's like, God's gift
yeah,
to Superman or whatever.
yeah.
So
Like just like that. One thing that came on my mind, that like as you were telling about, we are talking about continuity from the beginning. What we have seen in DC, that there are so many Batman, so many Superman, so
right,
many. So we at the same time, when we see the Marvel films, there's just one Iron Man.
yes.
So like
Well,
so you
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say,
please.
I don't know if you, because it just came out. I want to say it was yesterday, or the day before. Did you see like James Gunn's announcement where he like talked about
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this
yeah. I
stuff?
just so yeah, yeah,
Right. So literally, that's what he addressed that, where he's like, even in the animated stuff, they're going to have
yeah, yeah,
continuity. So like if this guy is Superman,
yeah,
when they do an animated Superman movie, that guy
yeah,
voices Superman. Like that's
yeah.
it. They're
Exactly.
not going to have like, because historically, I mean, I don't know what it is with DC, like with their movies department, they have never been able to get it right. I mean, like the closest that people will give them credit for was the, like 89 Batman,
Yeah,
where it was like, oh, Michael Keaton was great. But even at that time, like the internet wasn't really a thing, so you didn't have his like vocal thing. But even
yeah,
at that point, people were like, oh, Mr. Mom is going to be Batman. This is ridiculous. Um,
yeah,
and then of course, it came out and everyone was like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. But you have like they've just dropped. I mean, they've it's been one misstep after another, and part of it is that they don't like where Marvel, went okay. We're gonna build to Avengers. Period. It's gonna take like 10 years. We're gonna give you that time to get there. DC is like, all right, we're gonna give you a movie, and
Yeah.
if you don't do it like if you don't make this much and it doesn't hit with audiences, then we're scrapping it immediately. And that's been the problem. And I'm hoping they don't do that to James Gunn. Like I'm really hoping they give him like
Yeah.
time to really build this, because like DC's whole like reboot is what's
Totally.
killing them. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so great, but give them a few movies to like really,
Yeah. Yeah.
get people on board. And they, because of that though, they rush it way more. So where Iron Man to Avengers was like 10 years, right? And they had
Yeah.
all the origin movies like building up, and they weren't necessarily connected.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have to, like in the first Avenger with the Captain America, it was in the past. So they didn't have to connect anybody, that kind of thing. DC has always been like, all right, this is your first movie. You've got 3 movies to get us to a JLA movie, and every single one has to have everybody in it. You know what I mean? So it's like, you've got like your Wonder Woman movie, and they're like, all right, but we want to see Superman and Batman in that movie. Like, I don't care if they're just in it for 2 minutes, like they're in the movie, and then you're going straight into the Avengers or the JLA. And I'm like, let it slow build a little bit, like because nobody cares as much about the characters other than people who already do, right? Because there's been nothing, like no build up. Although I will say that they do better with the sort of like emotional writing, because like, in the MCU, anytime anybody, like at least for the first, leg, anytime there was like any kind of like emotional or touching scene, like they had to immediately hit a joke right after, to lighten it. And it's like, people can feel emotions at a movie. We can, let's do that. But hey, I'm not the writer, I'm not the director, right? I'm just the one who goes, yeah, you look good for the role, go.
Yeah. Totally. Like when like post Endgame, I believe that there's so much pressure on you guys because like there's no Iron Man left. So who's gonna take the charge? So there's so many confusions around the audience section. So like how do
And
you
of
handle
course,
it?
people are expecting a lot of them to come back.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, we're like, they're not coming. I promise, guys, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Although, I can say that now, but if the movies aren't doing as well, and they're like, Marvel goes, hey, we want Robert Downey Jr. back, and they back a dump truck full of cash up, he might come back. Like we've got, at this point, they've opened up the opportunities with Doctor Strange, because they've opened
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
multiverse.
I mean, that's
So
the
you can
time
bring
where
in a different actor, technically, or potentially. You can go, hey, Robert Downey Jr. is bored and wants to be Iron Man again. Let's pull him from this Earth, Hey, look, he's back, I mean, so there are opportunities, and that's where people are getting their hopes up. Like I remember right before Doctor Strange, and everyone's watching the trailers. Because like I worked on it, so I knew what was right and wrong. And they're like, I paused it at this specific frame on the trailer, and that's definitely Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
yeah, okay, let's see how that theory works out. But there were so many theories about like, oh, this person's gonna be this and this. There's also honestly one of the kind of it was basically told to us that it was going to happen, but it's a double-edged sword for me, right? The whole John Krasinski as like Reed Richards thing. It made people have hope that he is now Reed Richards, which is not the case. They even released a statement going, it was fan casting. Everybody said they wanted him. We were doing this whole multiverse thing. So we figured this is the time, give you what you want. And, like now everyone's like, oh, he's going to be forever. And they're like, no, he's not. We already said definitely one time. So that's why, like, when I say like the double-edged sword, it sucks because now it puts me and my guys in a position where we're going to be, like we have to put a Reed Richards in at some point, right? Like Fantastic Four is going to be introduced.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, it's not your guy. Okay. It's not, and people are going to be mad and like, oh, why are you recasting? He was perfect. But like, honestly, I didn't think he was. So, like I like that, like he got to fulfill that like meme thing, but I mean, he played it his way and that's fine, but it was not a casual read. You know what I mean? So like finding somebody who, but of course they're going to want somebody with a name and a face that's recognizable, and so that's that. Honestly, if it was me, like without studio pressure for that, I would love to see the whole Fantastic Four end up with like smaller, like unknown people. That way you can really let them develop the characters as opposed to like, because most of the time when you get a big star, right, with few exceptions, like for instance, Robert Downey Jr., very different from his previous roles, but most of them have a sort of specific way that they are and their expectation. And so you end up with like the perfect example is Will Smith, right? Will Smith is Will Smith in every movie.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what character he is, he's Will Smith as the character. So he's just, like you never see a whole lot of range. Like he might have different like emotional scenes or whatever, but he's still just like Will Smith, right?
Will Smith, yeah.
You get like, we've been lucky in the MCU where we, with Captain America, like he played, right, like Johnny Storm, totally different. I mean, like those two characters couldn't have been played more differently, and then Robert Downey Jr., of course, like we said, like his previous roles, he was kind of like, like a snarky, whatever. He still was, don't get me wrong, he was very still funny, sarcastic, etc., but he had a different sort of like vibe he was bringing, right? Like he carried himself differently than previous roles, that kind of thing. Like we've been lucky in getting like people who do change it up. But there's always that when you have like a list of actors, they go, one of these guys is going to be it. You might not, like, as a casting director, I might not like any of those guys for the role, like based on how they act. But it's not, those roles are not always in our hands. Like, like we can give input, but for the most part, they go, okay, well, is your guy gonna, guarantee like $100 million extra dollars? Okay, then we're not going with your guy,
Yeah, I mean, like the expectations got bigger because also like after No Way Home, because when Toby and Andrew they appear, the audience the expectations got bigger. I mean, like audience, even I was like,
honestly, that was the best part of the movie for me. I mean, I love it. One of the hardest things, honestly, in casting is keeping like leaks from happening. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to not at least, I mean, you get excited, right? Like, it's hard not to at least kind of casually mention it to a friend. And then, of course, like your friend might be like, oh man, no, I have a friend that's inside and they said this and it's going to be awesome. And then that's the leak, where it's like, it was unintentional. There was no, sort of malice, and you're not on the record, but then, you mention it around the wrong person and boom, it's news, or they throw it on like a Facebook status. Like, are you kidding me? Like, really? But, so it's hard, like, especially when it's a new movie, right? That's coming out. It's a new casting. People that you kind of want to announce it, right? Because like you're casting a big name for a reason, but not immediately, like you want to generate buzz, but not like 5 years before the movie. So it's kind of like keeping. Plus, you don't know when. Sorry, man. Plus, you don't know what might change. Like if it's 5 years out, like that may not happen. So you don't want to be like, it's this guy. Like we got Ryan Reynolds in this role, and it's going to be great. And then he goes, oh, so I can't actually do that anymore. Like, and then you go, oh man, now we're going to look like jackasses. Cool. Like now we have to change it. And, we got everyone all hyped up for you. But awesome, thanks, man. And you can't really get mad at because like they're people, things come up. And honestly, like I guarantee you, either one of us, if we got signed on to some role and they went, hey, we're gonna pay you like $10 million, and then somebody go, and you're gonna be like the third tier like actor here, and then somebody hits you up and goes, hey, we need you to work on this. This is the movie we're offering you $50 million plus a piece of the box office, and you get this and that, and also it's your movie. Of
Yeah.
course you're going to take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but with the kind of money these guys make, like, breach of contract is not a big deal.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
mean, you don't want to do it like egregiously and all the time, because people will stop working with you. That's the big risk. But honestly, like, any of these major, like the top tier actors, like, they could retire tomorrow and they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's why, randomly they'll just be like, you know what, I'm done acting for a while. Like, I'm retiring. And then, like, the only
Yeah.
they come back for either a huge payout or, like, they get bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or,
Exactly.
they start hanging out with their family all the time, and then they go, man,
Yeah.
these people suck. Like, I'm going back to work. Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
did I stop to hang out with moody teenagers? Like, I got kids, I gotta work. Daddy's gotta work. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, as you have working in the industry for so long, has it ever happened that, like, do you have something in your mind that you wanna make a movie as a director? Like, you're a casting director, but you have something in mind that you wanna debut as a director? I know
um,
you have done so many independent films,
right,
but
right,
in
right.
terms of studio films.
I like to, like, I wouldn't mind like writing more than
Yeah.
directing itself.
Okay.
And I've helped, like, occasionally, like, punch up, dialogue or script,
Yeah. Yeah.
but more like I more lean toward, I would rather do TV, like long
Okay.
term. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, that's just a more fun medium to play with, because you get more time to develop characters. I mean, okay, so not as much in today's world, because they want immediate, like, huge ratings, or they cancel, because it's all streaming now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they want an immediate payoff on the streaming thing, or they don't renew it before you even have a chance to kind of develop characters. Even if you're, like, super highly rated, they're like, yeah, but also, where are your views?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the thing is especially if you go like Netflix or whatever, where they release it all at once,
Yeah.
you'll have a massive, like, viewership for the
Yeah.
first week, and then it drops off like 50%,
Yeah.
because people have already watched the whole show. Like, I mean,
Totally. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people who want to rewatch it next week.
Yeah.
So, but then you do have, like, say, your Peacemakers, which, I'll be honest, I watched, God,
Yeah.
like, some of the episodes like 3-4 times, like, in a week, where I was like,
Yeah.
oh God, this, because for me, like, we on the podcast that we do, we
Yeah.
specifically, one, during when that was on, we talked about that every time,
Yeah.
and all of us, like, because it's myself, my partner who did stunts and a lot of the things I did,
Yeah.
one of the writers on some,
Yeah.
like, movies, and then the comic book shop owner, and we just talk about those kind of things, and every week we were like, this is like a perfectly written, like, and that's why I'm hyped for James Gunn to do the DCU, because
Yeah.
there was not a wasted moment in any episode
Yeah.
of Peacemaker. Like, it was perfectly paced, well written,
Totally.
and I was like, so when they announced him taking over, we literally were like, they should just give the DCU to James Gunn, like, every week. And then they did, and we're like, okay, we got what we asked for. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah. 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 So, like, even Marvel Studios, they're also doing the same, like, this kind of thing. Like, they are not releasing their Marvel shows at once. They're releasing it every week. If
Right.
you, yeah, yeah,
Right. And that's, I honestly, it's frustrating as a viewer,
totally,
because
yeah,
I do want to be able to sit down and go, all right, let's knock
exactly,
this out. I want to, like, because, they want to end it on a cliffhangery, like get you to watch the
yeah,
next
yeah,
episode,
yeah,
which is frustrating when you have to wait a week to watch the next episode. Whereas,
yeah,
the Netflix model, you can go, okay, great.
okay.
Let's see how that turns out,
Yeah,
Um, but I think in terms of, like, longevity and being able to renew and all that, that's a better model, because
yeah,
it does show you
yeah,
what the real viewership looks like, right? With
yeah,
the binge model, like I said, it doesn't matter how good your show is, how
yeah,
well rated it is, people are going to front load watch it, and
yeah,
then that's where the bulk of your
yeah,
your viewership is going to be. and then it's always going to drop off. So if you look at pure number metrics, it looks like it's not doing well. Whereas all the Marvel shows, every single week it went up, right? Because some the core sort of fan base watches the first episode, then they start going online talking about it. Oh, this was great. For instance, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Okay, let's be honest. Not a huge draw. Like there's none of Chris Evans isn't in it. There's no, you know what I mean? It's not a big thing, but you get your hype going from people going, wow, that was actually way better than I expected. Like that, I like the dialogue, this and that. So then their friends watch it, and then their friends. So each week you're seeing an increase in the ratings, and then so that shows that it's doing well. If they had released it all at once, you would see that same situation where a lot of people watch it, and then hits like half the audience, and then to look at just the numbers, you go, wow, this is not popular. Like apparently people didn't like it because it was great, and now it's not. But that's just not how those numbers translate.
Yeah.
But you've got like the people who that's all they do is they looking at their data analysts. So they go, well, okay, according to the numbers, and you're like, yeah, but those numbers are meaningless now.
Yes.
Like it's a tough situation because you got to sell. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're working with a studio that's tied to, because now every studio is tied to some streaming service.
Yeah.
So you're bound to that, right? So like the DC ones, they're all going to hit HBO Max.
Yeah.
So they're going to follow that weekly release like the others. But if you're just shopping around a show, you got to go wherever you get bought. I mean, like, you're selling to any streamer that'll have you basically.
Yeah.
So if it's a TV show and Netflix is the guys that are doing it, that's a risk. Like, that's because they are the main one that just goes, hey, binge it. Right. And okay, well, we're risking not getting a second season based on these numbers. Like, you got to make that decision. But then again, like I said, if they're the only ones writing that check, hey, I'd rather get paid for one season than nothing. You know what I mean? Like, like, okay, let's see, I can not make it at all, or I can just hope for a second season. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally right. I mean, like also I want to know what are the projects that are coming you are working on? Do you have any project in your hand right now?
Well, I mean, yeah. So because I'm like tied in with the whole Marvel thing, like we are, there's all the projects coming down the pipe there. I tend, like, obviously, I tend to be in the department more for the movies. There's definitely back in talk on like the Spider-Man stuff, but I really can't give details, obviously, because it's just like there are big things coming. Obviously, like we know that the universe is opened up, and not to be too specific, but obviously there are ramifications for Spider-Man's universe as well. Like we already saw in the previous, like where you had all three versions, and and not confirming they're going to be in it, but there are other versions out there that have been seen by people. And in an unrelated note, I can't tell you how often I get emails going, I'd like to play Miles Morales. You know what I mean? Like at least once a week, I get some random person sending me their reel going, I think I'd be great for Miles Morales. And I'm like, you realize that that's not going to be like an unknown. I mean, I don't want to be the one to break it to you there, buddy, but I'm not the guy for you. Like,
just like that. I mean, if someone is saying they want to play Miles Morales or just like that, I had something on my mind when I was some weeks ago. I was thinking about, like, I can also direct. There's an alternate version of Spider-Man that is called Pavitra Prabhakar. That's an Indian version of Spider-Man.
I've seen that.
So I was thinking that I wish I could direct this.
I mean, honestly, like it's kind of a legal gray area where, like, as far as studios are concerned, because if they have no plans to make
Yeah.
anything with that character, at least anytime soon. Like they
Yeah.
they kind of turn the blind, especially when it's something like that, right? Where it's like Indian
Yeah.
Spider-Man, which is not
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
popular stateside, which is where, so they're like, okay, like, but then again, that could have been said at one point for like Kamala Khan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Where the people they're like, oh, the people don't want that, and then that was a fantastic show.
So,
Like
yeah.
that was
Exactly.
probably the most comic book feeling show, and that
Yeah.
like I kind of wish that I could take credit for that casting because that was a near perfect casting.
Yeah. Perfect. And
Because
also, I
because she was
love.
a fan of the material, and
Yeah.
that was the basis for the character, was that she was
Yeah.
supposed to be a
Totally.
fan. So it was like just natural.
Yeah, and I also love the representation, the kind of representation they had on the show. That was totally accurate.
Hmm. And that's important,
Yeah, yeah,
like people want to see themselves. Like that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like, you've got your like old guard, like old white guys, like whatever, like who are like, oh, why are we, diversity casting and this and that. Like it's always a thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
But like adults want to see it, but also it's important for kids to see themselves. Like I'm not saying that, like, for instance, like an Indian kid can't
yeah,
relate to like Peter Parker because he's a white teenager, right? Of
yeah,
course
yeah,
you can.
yeah, yeah,
But if you grow up and all the heroes are like white kids because they were all written in the 50s, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's a certain amount of like subliminal, subconscious, like, oh, so can Indian kids not be heroic?
you're right. Yeah,
Like, and so
yeah,
there
yeah,
is that. So it's important to be like, we're in a society now where, where you can have representation, right?
yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, it's almost worse if they go, hey, we're going to shoot Indian Spider-Man or whatever. And then it's all like crazy Americanized and like, which
yeah,
might as well not be, or God help you. Like, oh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The dude who was Indian in Short Circuit.
who was?
Like,
Uh,
did you see the movie Short Circuit with like Johnny
no,
Five?
no, no.
Okay. Um, I'm trying to remember his name now, and it's but he's like just a middle-aged white dude
Yeah,
who
yeah,
they
yeah.
brown faced and threw the accent on, and it was like
Oh,
a really broad, like Apu accent. You know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
like, holy crap! Like that's not the
yeah.
way to go, guys.
Just like the old West Side Story, it was all the white actors. They were playing the Puerto Rican,
Right.
but yeah. But when
Yeah.
you see the recent one by Steven Spielberg, they actually,
Well, right. Exactly. And
yeah,
that's more happening more now.
yeah,
But also there is still some amount of like whitewashing the character background. Even if you hire somebody like for instance, like you said, they nailed it with the Kamala Khan Captain Marvel stuff,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because instead of just being like, oh, look, it's Kamala Khan, she's a Muslim and this and that, and then she's just like living in New York as like a average New York American girl, like
yeah.
completely eliminates the whole purpose of it, right? But
Totally, totally.
as somebody who is like her, and you want to see yourself, when you see that, oh, she's got the same parents that I grew up with, and when she goes to, like services, they're like giving her the same crap for
Yeah, yeah,
being
yeah,
an Americanized Muslim, because that did play, but
yeah,
she came from the cultural background where there was that kind of clash, and that's important to see, because if you want
yeah,
to relate to a character, they have to be realistic and similar to you. They can't just
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
like,
So,
they can't just be like dark skinned and everything else is just like like it just doesn't work.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
But then there's also that risk of going too far, and that happens a lot with like Black and Hispanic characters, where like you've got a writer's room that don't have that background and have no idea what's going on, so they're all like, what could his background be? Oh, he was in a gang. You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, yeah, great, okay, cool.
yeah.
So we're just gonna say that everybody on this shade of the spectrum, this spectrum of the shade color Pantones are just gangbangers. Got it. Cool. Great.
Yeah,
Oh no, they
yeah,
can also be terrorists. Awesome. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, Yeah. So that's the other risk is you've got to have writers who understand it. You've got to have at least somebody in the room, even if it's just one guy who everyone's like, that guy's a pain in the ass because he's always telling us we're wrong.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
has to be there to course correct when they start kind of veering into that more
yeah.
subliminally racist territory. Because it to me, it's more racist to be like every black guy's in a gang than to be like we're only
Yeah,
casting white people. Like I would
yeah.
rather see a movie full of just white guys than a movie full of racist caricatures. You know?
Totally. Totally. I like as is you have said about the casting, like the diversity right now. Do you feel that because of this diversity, the cultural diversity, there are more opportunities to the people, to the new actors around the world, no matter what religion he is from, no matter what caste he's from, no matter what race he's from. I
Absolutely.
mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
they are getting more opportunities.
Well, and that and so a lot of people that are like the very vocal minority, okay, that
Yeah,
are
yeah,
like they're only casting for diversity, not for the best. Like that's bullshit. Like
yeah, yeah,
the we're not going to cast somebody who is horrible
yeah.
because they check a box. Like that's just
Totally.
never gonna
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
in the at the end of the day, like the movie still has to be good, or else it's not gonna
Yeah,
make
yeah,
money.
yeah,
Like I don't care
exactly.
how many different ethnicities and cultures you have in it.
Totally,
That's not
totally.
selling tickets. It's got to still
Yeah,
be a good movie.
yeah,
So now, are there going to be times where you have two people that are equally good for the role, and you might lean one way to go,
yeah,
wouldn't this be interesting? You know what I mean? Yeah, that happens, but more often than not, you've
yeah,
got one clear, like person who's like the best one reading the lines and delivering and has that energy that you're looking for, and they might not be the original written color because again, like especially when it comes to comic book movies, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Most of the comics they're based on are straight up 50s and early 60s. Like that's when they
yeah,
were written.
yeah,
So they're either very like waspy white or they're almost like caricatures if they had like for instance in Green Lantern, right? Like
yeah,
Hal Jordan, like one of his little like friend partner guys was an Eskimo, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
literally called like he was called like I was like pie face or something. And I'm like, holy crap. Or like any Asian character, like when you had Iron Fist, you had like
yeah,
the Fu Manchu was his like guy, and I'm like, okay, we're not doing that. Like, I'm sorry, but like that's just not gonna happen.
yeah,
Because that's really caricature racist, and we're just not doing it. Like I know that like the Simpsons kind of, I mean, it's been a while now, but came under fire
yeah,
for like the Apu character, and then like some of the others as well, where they went like way over the top. And when it came out, I'm not saying it was okay, but it was accepted, right?
yeah, yeah,
And it's hard to get some people to also understand. Actually, I've got a buddy who cannot seem to grasp the concept that just because something was accepted, like you hear all these people going, "Oh, we used to be tougher back in the day," like people could take these kind of
yeah,
jokes and not get offended. And it's like, well, not really. Like they were offended, but they didn't have a voice. Like
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
somebody came up to you and was like all, like, mini mart like accent, like you come again like that, they literally would be like
yeah,
you'd just have to take it, right? You'd be like, cool, great. Or like
yeah,
Asian kids would be like, hey, what's up, Bruce Lee? And they'd be like, like let me put my eyes.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, exactly,
the
yeah,
kid would just be like, well, what am I gonna say something and get my ass beat? Like, are you kidding? Like I'm just
yeah,
gonna ha 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 laugh along.
yeah,
And plus that's kind of like society. People do that anyway, even now where it's kind of okay to be like, no, that's not okay.
yeah,
Some people just don't like confrontation. So if you get picked on for something, you just kind of like, haha, laugh along with them
yeah,
on the outside. On the inside, you're like either rage or like, sad. You're like, why is this a thing
yeah,
still? So, but now it's kind of more acceptable to go, dude, that's not
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
or my favorite thing is if somebody makes like cracks a joke that's
yeah,
like that, to just say, hey, why is that funny? Like I don't understand the joke, can you explain it to me? And they have like they stumble all over because then they realize like they got to explain it in
yeah, yeah,
like it's a
Totally.
racist or bigotry kind of thing, and now they have to try to explain it without seeming like it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, why is that? Like, I don't get the joke. Like, can you,
Yeah.
but it's now it's okay to be like, hey man, can you not do that? And so,
Yeah.
obviously you've got that, like I said, that
Yeah.
vocal minority who are like, you see, this is what's wrong with America these days. And it's like, no, dude,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you should want better for people every generation. Like you
Yeah. Yeah.
should want, for kids, like it wasn't that long ago. And people forget that it wasn't that long ago that like interracial dating and marriages were illegal. I mean, like, we're not talking, 1,000 years ago. Like, I mean, we're
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Exactly.
it was literally within like at least our parents' time.
Yeah.
Like it's not we're not 5 generations ago.
Yeah.
That was recent, and we were trending in a better direction. I
Yeah.
think where like the racism and things like that were like shameful and hidden away. And so while some people might pass it to their kids, it was kind of on the right track to die out.
Yeah.
Because it's just less acceptable. And then somebody got elected, and hype, like,
Yeah.
pumped up all these all these bigots and insane people, and so now
Yeah.
it's like full force out in the open again, and that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, as you have said, that there's diversity, and I believe there's so much of competition. So, do you feel like what kind of tips do you wanna give to the younger actors, to the aspiring actors, because there's so much competition right now. So, what are the things that should have an
um
actor should have?
See, I always go back and forth between take what you can get, because
Yeah.
that's important, but also I always tell them, don't just take any role,
Yeah.
because there are roles that can potentially later act as like a hurdle.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
a lot of those are honestly, it sucks to say, because it's still like where it's getting kind of easier to be at least certain minorities, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in America, it's still a little hard to be black. Let's be honest. Like the
Yeah.
news
Yeah.
shows that. But like for a lot of other minorities, it's getting a little easier, right? Women though still have a really like, because I don't even know why, but especially when it comes to acting, it's getting a little better with the whole Me Too thing, right? Like some of the
Yeah. Yeah.
there's still sharks in the water, but like the big ones obviously not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a little easier to get in now.
Yeah.
But the problem is a lot of times, especially for attractive women, right? Like they want to get, like, everybody wants to offer them the even like soft core, right? Like sexy roles or whatever, and that can tank your career, because
Yeah.
it's very easy to get pigeonholed no matter what kind of role, right?
Yeah.
Like you become like, for hell, Bruce Willis like was started out as like a comedic actor on sitcom,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
once he hit that like John McClane role, every role he got was
Yeah.
gruff action guy. You do a couple of movies as, like sexy love interest, whatever, that's what you're going to get. And then
Yeah.
you try to go, obviously you're not doing movies to not put them on your resume. So then you go into a casting thing, and you might get people who go, yeah, but this is a more serious role. This is a meatier role than what she's done in the past. So let's keep looking before they even
Yeah.
bring you in. But on the other side, if you want to crack into some of the bigger like mid-level roles and like a 10-year commitment, they're going to want somebody they think can do it. So you have to
Yeah.
have something. Then again, like TV is like, okay, so TV and movies have always been different, but it's getting less that. Like
Yeah.
back in the day, right? Like if you were a movie star and started doing TV, your movie career was just that was signifying it was over. Like
Yeah.
that was a step down. But now there's so much crossover. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly, new actors look for TV.
Yeah.
If you want to get into big movie roles, jump onto TV and show people what you got. Because like
Yeah.
I said, in a TV show, you have more time to develop your character
Actor.
and
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
show range,
Totally.
And then you can easily point to that for a movie, like for a casting group. Like obviously they want you to deliver in person, but you can, we will look at what you've done. And if we're
Yeah.
looking for a serious role, even if you're, like Chandler from Friends, like there are still, he
Yeah.
had serious moments, right? Matthew Perry had some serious moments, and you can see those
Totally.
and go,
Yeah.
okay, so the guy's got range. Great, we can use this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, like what John Krasinski started on The Office, and like he was about to pack up and go home.
Yeah.
Like literally, this, like he tells the story where he, like the previous week, he was like, I'm not getting anything. I've been waiting tables for this long, and it's just not happening. I'm going home. He called his mom, and she was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
give it another week, and if
Yeah.
they come home. And like literally the day he was like the deadline, he got offered like to come in and read for The Office, and now look at him. You know what I mean? Like so,
Yeah.
so absolutely for new actors, like take those kind of roles. Like TV, I personally think is the way to break in,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because it's no longer so separate that people go, oh, well, he wants to be in this movie or she wants to be in this movie, but like they're a TV actor. Like that's not a thing anymore. You know what
That's
I
not.
mean?
Yeah.
Because TV is big budget now. Like
Yeah.
because the movie studios are making TV, they obviously can no longer look down on TV,
Yeah.
Like otherwise they're telling their core audience like this is all garbage, don't watch it. Although
Yeah.
technically the MCU Marvel method, like people don't tend to notice this when I point it out. All of the shows, you don't have to watch the shows to follow the movies. Like
Yeah.
they say it's all connected, and it kind of is. But if you watch, like it starts and ends in the same
Yeah.
place. You know what I mean? Like the same thing has happened. So if you, for instance, missed WandaVision, you can see, the multiverse of madness and just get it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
she was falling apart at the beginning, she's falling apart at the end. Like it
Yeah.
just in a different way, sure. But if you skip it and go
Yeah.
right to the next movie, it still makes sense. Like there might be a throwaway line where, like they mention in the multiverse of madness to her, like they mention like her doing the thing in the city, but that doesn't have to even land for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a member of the audience, there are a lot of lines that don't really tie into
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
specific because they're dialogue. I mean, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't want every line to be an Easter egg to something else. Like that's gonna be terrible. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. So the thing I want to ask that, have you ever been in India?
I have not.
Oh, you're not.
No.
You should come as soon as possible.
Yeah. I've heard that. Like I've wanted to, but yeah, no, I've never been to India.
Okay. So yeah, whenever you are planning to visit India, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be
So,
great, man. Um, also to add on to the
yeah.
get into TV, if you
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Yeah.
get into a Marvel or DC or whatever you want, like if you want to get into that universe
Yeah.
and you can get even a tiny role in one of those shows,
Yeah.
remember those like top producers, the James Gunn, the Feige, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They're all about decades of continuity. If you showed up in the background, you are way
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
likely to get into one of the movies because people, even as a background person, people can go, "Oh, holy crap! That's the same dude that was at the bank
Yeah.
in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He was at the bank when Falcon was trying to get a loan. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap!
Yeah.
That guy's at the Starbucks now. Wow, what's going on? It's all connected. You know what I mean? Like." So it's really way easier once you've
Yeah.
worked in
Yeah.
there, even if they don't know who you are, like the producers.
Yeah.
Once you
That.
go, hey, well, I was in this as this guy, they go, oh, well, then you can be that guy again. Cool, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously you didn't suck at it because we we used you. So cool. Welcome
Yeah.
to the family.
Yeah. I mean, like, as you have said, there are plenty of opportunities for the new actors, the new generation of actors. Like as I also make movies, there are some actors who are working on me. They also ask me that that you're doing a show, a live show with Chris. So they were also there. They also had so many questions about like the casting process, and you have answered all of them. So thank you so much for this. And I really want to know that if I have something, like if I have their profiles, I can send them to you if
Yeah,
you allow. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, man. You got my
yeah,
email, so you can
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
get, send
yeah,
me whatever you want, man. I'm
yeah.
down to help. So what kind of movies, just out of curiosity, do you
Yeah,
primarily
yeah.
make?
Yeah, I actually did a lot of short films. Actually, I've started my, making movies at a very early age. At the age of 13, I've started making movies,
I did
and now,
too. I got like there was this
yeah,
I think it was Fisher Price or something. It was something like that they released when I was like 6 or 7,
yeah.
and it was like
Oh,
this little camcorder
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that recorded to cassette tapes,
yeah.
like
Okay.
that, like the regular tape cassette tapes. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
I ran around like I made. I like to now say that they were like artsy films because like
yeah,
I followed my dog around at one point and like she was like pooping in the yard and I was like, oh, I got to get this, you know.
yeah,
And I was like, it's
yeah,
called A Crappy Day or whatever. Like, and I'd make my parents watch it, you know. So I've
yeah.
definitely always been in like that, you know,
That's yeah, yeah. So,
that sphere.
I
So yeah,
yeah. So
I
so many
definitely relate to you there.
short films. And recently, I'm working with the Marvel Studios, the producer of Moon Knight, Peter
Okay.
Cameron.
Yeah.
Peter Cameron. He is executive producing my film, my short film. It's a horror short film. So yeah, I will share the link with you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
I've noticed that as far as like indie films to make, horror is
yeah,
the easiest to get into.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really
yeah,
is. Like because it's there's a certain level of like low budget campy that makes it better.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like horror fans are not
yeah,
looking for like slick overproduced movies. Like they want
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
gritty.
yeah,
So it's very easy to come in with a low budget and not
yeah,
like
yeah.
the highest end equipment and kill it, you know? Um plus they're fun. Like they're just fun. Like,
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, totally. I mean,
it's
like,
just a fun thing to work on because
yeah,
like
and if you closely look at the filmography, I mean, all the films that are that are bona fide masterpieces, that they are kind of indie films. They're
yeah,
not big budget films. They're really
exactly,
indie films.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a Superman one is well, other than the first Superman, which they decided was Richard
yeah,
Donner or whatever,
yeah,
but only because that was such a new thing at that point. But like
yeah,
you're not going to see, for instance, like Man of Steel, but you might see a Brightburn, right? Which is the
yeah,
same
yeah.
kind of thing,
Some kind of
but
thing. Yeah,
it's more nuanced and
new. Yeah, yeah,
So I get you.
totally.
Absolutely, I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
But
So
yes,
that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I'm really happy that I've started my journey for so long, and this day I'm making a film. Obviously with the collaboration with Marvel Studios producer. He has written and produced Moon Knight. He has written and produced Werewolf by Night.
oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
And I love that they did Werewolf by Night. Actually, I'll be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. I loved it.
Like just because there was that, like, I mean, first of all, because that's where Moon Knight
Yeah,
came
yeah,
from. So that that was cool that they did the throwback to that. Also, one of my favorite things in Moon Knight was all the QR codes to get the comics, like the origin comics and stuff. That was like so cool
yeah, yeah,
because I do come from comics. Like I grew up with comics, right? So
yeah, yeah,
like when they stick to the original comics or they give like they're trying to kind of promote that, I love that.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
actually why I kind of leaned into that and why I was like it was important to me to try to get into casting for that kind of stuff because I do want it to feel
Yeah,
like the original, like the source. I mean, obviously sometimes they go way in a different direction, but at least the characters can feel like
yeah, yeah,
familiar and
totally,
so
exactly. Yeah. So, thank you so much for joining my show. It's really my honor,
yeah, of
and
course, anytime.
yeah, and it was really very much informative, and at the same time, I like I was asking that if you have ever been in India or not. If you if you're making mine, if you're visiting India, just let me know because there are so many beautiful places here, and yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
It's kind of like odd, and I know we're wrapping, but it's odd to me like how little most Americans like internationally travel, and how
yeah,
much
yeah,
like we tend to rely on like what we are told places are like,
yeah,
when like there's beauty and awesome places in anywhere. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah,
where you go, you're gonna
yeah,
find
yeah,
something, right? But there
exactly.
are so many people who have this like mindset that like it's one thing, and it's just not. I mean, it's and not only that, but it's like also, as Americans, we like speak one language, right? And people are typically like just terrible at accents, but like everybody can do an American accent. You know what I mean? Like all
Yeah.
the actors like you're surprised when you find out like, hold on, wait, that person's like Australian, that person's
Yeah,
like, British, they're Indian, like, and they're just like flat, hey, I'm an American, dot dot dot, dot,
yeah,
and you're like, what? But then, like, whenever a lot of Americans try to do the accent, they're like that super broad, exaggerated version where you're like, nobody sounds like that. Where they're
yeah,
like, I'm gonna sound British, and it's like Cockney, and you're like, you realize that's like 2 blocks, right? There's like 2 blocks of people sound like that. Everybody else
yeah,
sounds different.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like
Totally.
I have a buddy who's British, and he actually was Cockney, but he barely has an accent, and only
Yeah.
it's like when he gets super tired, he sounds like his original like accent, but
Yeah,
otherwise he's lost it, and he can put it on, take it off, whatever, but he just sounds like everybody.
yeah.
But man, it was good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. It was really
Yeah,
fun.
send me
Yeah,
send me a link for the, like you said, the film you're
yeah,
doing,
yeah. The
the
film.
short
Yeah,
film, and anything you want to send me is fine.
yeah. And if in the film, if you like the actors, I can send their profiles too.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a great
And
night, and get some
yeah,
rest. I guess I know it's
yeah.
late.
I think it's morning there. It's 1
It's like
p.m.
2 in the afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank
all
you.
right, man. Well,
Goodbye.
it was,
Yeah.
like I said, it was great talking to you,
Yeah.
and anytime, let me know. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. You too.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah.